This is a podcast which does not shy away from difficult and vulnerable topics, and we ask you to take care of yourselves when you listen. The content is of an adult nature, and we do swear at times.
Welcome to the Autistic Licence podcast. I'm Leo in London.
I'm Shauna, and I'm Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here.
I have been struggling with my sadness today.
Mm-hmm.
It's hit quite hard the last few hours, I think.
So, do you want me to do a kind of a update for our listeners?
We can do that, yeah. It's all real. Yeah.
So, there's an episode that will come out before this one.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, we happened to be speaking about pets. And in fact, your pets were present in the room whenever we happened to be speaking the last time, which is probably, that recording was probably 2 weeks ago or maybe 3 weeks ago. We haven't done an awful lot of recording this month. And Woody, your dog, who was mentioned and featured in that episode, his health has been deteriorating and deteriorated quite suddenly last week. And he is now no longer with us.
That's right. That's right.
And that is the context for your sadness today.
Yeah. We're recording on Tuesday lunchtime and pretty much 48 hours since Woody died. For context, he's been very ill for a long time. He had a congenital heart defect, which a lot of Jack Russells have apparently. And that has been treated for quite a long time, many months, over a year, with medication for his heart. And part of that medication is a diuretic, and because that makes him drink and pee a lot, that has an impact on his kidneys, and it was those actually that gave out, and he became very ill over a week. And we decided that we wouldn't let him suffer or be in distress, and we're consulting the vet throughout and having him examined, and we realised that he was very near the end at the weekend. And I've never experienced, though this is my sort of third dog, having two dogs previously as a family when I was growing up. Both of them were euthanized because they were very ill at the end of their lives, but I wasn't there. So I've not experienced it before. And I was imagining, I've always imagined, well, two things. One, that it would be at the vet's, and that would be the very worst thing for Woody because he was absolutely terrified. He became a different dog at the vet's, snarling and shaking, and he never got over that. So that would have been awful. But the vet recommended home visit vet services that would come and euthanize your pet if it was necessary, and we went with the one that was recommended, and the guy was really, really wonderful, actually. But the other thing that I always imagined was that I would be racked with doubt and certainly guilt, and because I've seen that in other people before, and, is this the right thing? Is it the right time? Could he have lived longer? And, and I didn't, and I was quite surprised by that. It was definitely the right thing. There was already validation about that from the vet, from his vet, and then also from the one who visited. He said something which psychologically I think was really, really useful. One of the first things he said when he got here was that, I'm under no obligation to carry this out. And if I felt that this wasn't the right time or it wasn't the right thing to do, I would tell you and I wouldn't do it. But he, had the history and he could see Woody and as he was, and he was, it was, even though I didn't have those doubts, I think a lot of people do. And I thought it was a wonderful thing to be very open about that. And that was reassuring. And I won't go into the process here in any detail, but what, again, was just incredibly reassuring is it was genuinely peaceful and calm, and there was no pain and there was no distress. And that was absolutely evident. And all of that means that it was as good an end as it could possibly have been. And we have, as listeners will know, there are two dogs here. There was Woody and there is Molly. Woody was 14, 15 years old. He was adopted at 4 years old, and he's been here for 10 years. Molly's relatively new. She's been here for 3 years and is quite a bit younger, probably maybe like 6 years old, something like that. And we're obviously very worried for them. They became a very closely bonded pair, always together. She would follow him around. He wasn't that bothered, but she would follow him around and be by his side and curl up with him when they slept. And that I thought was going to be extremely difficult so far, and it is only 2 days, but so far she seems to have kind of taken it in her stride and not particularly changed her behaviour. She is off her food a bit, we noticed that, but she's not going round seemingly looking for him or anything like that, which I kind of imagined as well. We allowed her to be with him when he died. For about an hour we were all with him until there was a driver who came to collect him to take him to be cremated, and she was there for that. And it was absolutely incredible that he seemed to just completely disappear from her awareness. She didn't see him. He was right there, lying as he would do anyway on his bed, in his bed, and it was as if he'd just become another object to her. And it was fascinating. She wasn't disturbed. Again, I have all these fantasies in my head that she'd be nudging him and pawing him and, wake up, that kind of thing, which would have been heartbreaking. I'm sure that does happen, but for whatever her perception is, he just wasn't there. He was just another cushion or something, and again, wonderfully reassuring that she seemed to just accept it. And I am fascinated, and we've had some conversations already, you and I, about this, and I'm fascinated about what it is that Molly perceives as an alive creature that then goes away when they've died, and because it completely changed her relationship to this physical manifestation of Woody. It was completely changed. What is it that changed for her that made the difference between him having died and being there and him in exactly the same position, looking exactly the same, being asleep? It was absolutely incredible.
And it must be that she had a kind of a soul connection with him, because she didn't go over and check if he's breathing. She didn't notice anything like that. No, he would have still smelled the same.
Yes, absolutely.
So those things were still the same. But there was something that she knew even from a distance.
Yes, yeah.
But but she also seemed to have had a sense of threat or imminent something changing whenever the vet arrived. Because she wasn't very happy.
She was extreme. No. And she will bark and jump at sometimes somebody coming into the flat that she doesn't know. But this was by far the kind of angriest I've seen her, and she did go to bite the vet's jump up and bite the vet's hand. And fortunately, she doesn't have many teeth, which she lost at some point before we adopted her. So I did have to take her into the bedroom and shut her away while the vet put Woody to sleep. But then once he had gone, and it was pretty quick anyway, then we did allow her back. But I don't know what, if anything, she sensed about this person and why they were there. Because she, as opposed to Woody, is fine at the vet's. She doesn't mind being there. So she doesn't mind the smell of a vet, for example.
Yeah, but a vet
speaking.
doesn't normally come into her house.
No, never. That's the first time that's ever happened.
That's going to be a change.
Who knows? Yeah. Yes.
It just sounded, at a distance.
No, but I love hearing what you make of it. Yes.
Like a protest. Like, I know what's happening. I know my best friend is not okay. He is not eating. He's not doing all the things he normally does. I know, because it's wired into me about death. I think animals know these cycles. So I know I'm going to lose him. Oh, there's this vet, this person that doesn't belong here is coming. And it sounds like she protested that and then accepted it.
And immediately accepted it, yes.
Because she couldn't do anything about it. And she had already said her goodbyes in some ways.
Well, yes.
She had been with him, and she'd been very close with him for a number of days.
Yes, I mean, she definitely sensed something was different and something was wrong, because she, Woody completely stopped eating. But she also has eaten very, very little over those last few days as well, and still is a little off her food. That's the biggest kind of difference.
I feel like if I knew, because I want to have, would like that choice. I don't even know what the law says about any of that, actually. That's how clear.
Well, it's illegal here. You can't do, you can't, euthanasia is illegal here.
So I hypothetically would like to have that choice. And I would like the people that I'm close to have that choice. And if I knew that was coming, or that the person that I loved, so I'm thinking Molly here with Woody, the person that I love is ready to die. And I know that, whatever way I know that, whether it's verbal or whether I pick it up or anything. I'm just imagining some people are maybe not speaking at that stage of life, so I'm not transporting myself into an animal here. I'm just being realistic about what all the different things that can happen. If I'm Molly, if I'm someone who's going to lose someone that I love, and I have spent all the time that I can with them, and then the moment comes, then I might protest it, but also accept it, and then it's done, it's over, and I might not want to see that person again. I just can see how when it's over, it's over, and that maybe there would be no need or no sense that I would want to touch or be close to or hold or hug or snuggle up to a body of someone who has gone. I had no desire. The closest person I ever had was my granny, and I had no desire to see her body or relate to it after she had gone. So I guess all I'm saying is I can understand, and I know this probably sounds preposterous, and I don't even know your dogs, and this is all projection, but I can just imagine that. Why would I go over to a dead body? It doesn't make sense to me.
My two experiences, which was Woody, and I did want to sit with him and have my hand on him and stroke him and kiss him. And my maternal grandmother, who became unwell kind of very suddenly went to hospital, heart failure, and she died. And the whole family was there. And so she was in a side room for a while, and we were able to, if we chose to go in. And I did spend time with her. And I did talk to her, and I did kiss her goodbye. And that was very valuable for me. But I think until then, like you, I would have imagined that I've had no interest in doing that. Because it wouldn't be for her, it would be for me. And I felt, I think, sort of instinctively that I wouldn't want that, or it wouldn't mean much to me. But actually in both of those instances, for me, it was really important, actually. And it did do something for me. And I know I hate the word closure because I think it's a nonsense in most cases. But there was something about resolution of an event, a really, really profound event. And although, to go into the therapy part of me, in training, we are kind of told about the nonsense about this idea of closure, that you can neatly move from one field into another field and then it's all behind you and neat. But we are also, particularly in humanistic training, we talk a lot about endings and how important they are. They're very similar, but they're also very different. And there was something about how Woody's death happened on Sunday lunchtime, which did have that sense of a good ending in lots of ways, not just for his life and his existence, but for how it was for us, Molly included, Yeah,
it's making me think lots of things about, like, how I knew someone was going to die. I would want my last time of touching them to be when it was reciprocated. And so that would feel more meaningful. And then I'm thinking Molly did that with Woody. So then I can see then why I really wouldn't want to, because they wouldn't be there. And then I can also see where I don't completely buy into this idea that we have to have a planned ending. Like, it's encouraged in therapy, and I encourage it. I talk to clients about whether they want it and how they want it. But obviously I respect if someone does not end in a way that, you have to do a closure session. Like, that's just too standardized for me. And, some endings for me in life, in all sorts of ways, with people, with places, you don't always know in advance that they're happening. And you don't always need to go back over and do them in a certain way. And some of the most poignant ones are the ones you don't even know at the time, and then you look back and say, because I sometimes go, oh, Leilani, when was the last time you jumped into my arms? I never knew that was the last time. When was the last time you breastfed? When was the last time she's like, oh, fuck, stop it, but you don't know, and then you look back, and like, then it seems, and I totally understand that death is the final one. So I'm not trying to trivialize it. I'm just broadening things out to, I don't know that I always need that. And then I'm also thinking, okay, when I'm dead, if I went through that, would my wish be that people would hug me when I'm gone? Or actually, would that feel a bit like, let's just do that when I'm still here? And,
it can be both. And of course, it wouldn't be for you. It may feel like, but it may feel to them like it's for you, and therefore for them it's a thing. I totally agree.
But I do get to say, because that's like saying, like, I want to have my funeral planned, and I always I always keep. It comes round to me. Maybe it's a time of year for it coming round to me. I really need to get that written down. I've got I've got an actual will, but then I've also got like my written, my hopes and, some practicalities on it, and some like please do not send me off from this kind of a church singing this kind of stupid songs, you know, but it's not really as detailed as I want it to be.
Right.
And I feel like it's probably way more detailed than most people that I know at my age.
You might be autistic.
I might be autistic. But it's not detailed enough for me. And like, I kind of think you could argue that as well. You could say, oh, that's not for you. It fucking is for me. It's my funeral. So I think that I should have a right to say, actually, I don't really want people coming and touching and hugging and kissing me. If they wouldn't do that in real life, or I wouldn't want them to do that in real life, then don't do it when I'm dead. Is that autistic? Probably is. Don't want to be touched by like all these people who would do that. Is this really
my dialed up
irreverent?
sensitivities don't die
like,
with me.
Yeah, just fucking respect my body. 2 meters, please.
I mean, what I was saying there about the importance of endings, I am absolutely with you that it can't be prescriptive because it's often not in our control, whatever the kinds of things are. You know, somebody may just never turn up for their session in therapy again, and I might never see them again, and part of that is being okay with that and not knowing. And this has certainly happened a number of times, somebody turns up and goes, you know what, I'm good, I'm done. And I certainly don't say, as you don't, you know, well, there's this particular process and it's recommended that we do this way and have a proper ending. I will absolutely offer it and say that some people do find that important, but it's absolutely not necessary, because the most important thing in therapy is maximizing choice. That's the biggest goal for me. And so that includes not seeing me anymore or in whatever way. Absolutely. And, you know, generally speaking, we don't get to choose when and how we die either. Just to add to that, because it is very timely, there was a vote in Parliament in the last month which did vote in favour of assisted dying. There was an assisted dying bill, and it is now going through, and it'll take a very, very long time to come to something, but it's the first time in the United Kingdom that's been put to the vote and has been voted in favour of. There have been a number of goes at that before, so things may well change if that all goes through. In what form, we don't know, but that has literally just happened. So I think it's important to
thank you for telling me. I'm not, as you know, I'm not good at keeping up on anything like that, and I really appreciate it whenever you educate me as to what's happening in politics and the government and the world. Okay.
So that is a thing, and we do have that freedom with our pets. And what you said also, which really got me a lump stuck in my throat, was, you know, you're talking about that you would choose for you or other, you know, people that, you know, the last hug or whatever, that last physical interaction is while they're alive, and that because that can be what you said that I noticed was that it was reciprocal. Woody and I had a very autistic relationship. I've talked about it here before, probably in that episode that we haven't put out yet, but will come before this one, you know, about some of the very, very specific routines, unspoken routines that we had, you know, about going into the garden, about communing when we got back into the flat again, etc. And one thing, so one of the most important thing for me was that physical commune. So, you know, when he had come back in from the garden, I would have taken him down extremely early in the morning, and he would come back and he would hop up onto the sofa or the bed, and I wouldn't be able to kneel in front. He'd be on the edge and I'd be able to kneel in front of him face to face, and we would just press our foreheads together. And then he would tip his head back and lick my nose. And that was, you know, for 10 years, that's what happened every single day. And any time I felt a need to want to be close to him, he would always, you know, if I put my head down, he would always offer his head to touch mine and then lick my nose. And what I found in those kind of the last week or two when he was really unwell, is he would still do that, but he was obviously uncomfortable, and I never got the lick again. But he did on Sunday morning of his last day. He did actually tip his head back and lick my nose.
Oh, I love that.
I know. And, I didn't make anything of it. I don't impose other creatures' narratives on themselves, but it seemed significant that was the day that he chose that he wanted to do that. Yeah, it's such a whole, and we talked about this on that other episode that there is this different kind of relationship I maintain that autistic people have with their pets.
Mm-hmm. The other episode, I know you haven't listened to it since, and it might be hard to listen to it.
No, I'm really looking forward to it, actually. To hearing that he was in the room and that we talked
he was
about
in the room, but you didn't go into. I know all those little rituals, but the other one that he does is the thing on the way up the stairs. And didn't you say that he did that at the weekend? He did do that thing where he waits for
on the Sunday morning. So
on the Sunday,
he will in the morning and through the day. When he's let out, I mean, other than to go for walks in the park and stuff, but he would go in the garden. But last thing at night, for his kind of nighttime wee at 11 o'clock, which usually wasn't my job, but I did it sometimes. He would go out the front, and he would know the difference because when he went out the front, he'd be on his extended lead, so he'd go to the front door instead of the back door, so he knew. When he came in from that, he would be on the lead. And he would go up the first, so we live on the second floor on the top of the converted house. And he would go up always the first 3 stairs, turn himself to the right, and so that I could take his collar off. And then I would unclip his collar, and then he would go up to the top of the flight of stairs, turn around, wait for me at the top of the first flight of stairs until I came and touched him. And then he would go up the rest of the stairs. And he did still do that, despite how unwell he was. It was so ingrained, such a ritual, such a routine. No, yes, he stopped on the 3rd stair and at the top. Again, I think it does bring up a couple of what I think of as autistic ways of being, which is something about silent communication. I'm not saying I don't say good boy, good girl to the dogs and make, vocalizations. For Woody, it really was when I did do that in the last year. That was only for my benefit because he was also deaf. He lost his hearing. So I do that. But most of the communication that I have with them and with animals generally does tend to be silent. I don't ever feel a need to vocalize. And I think that, and this will sound very grandiose as well, I know, and I think most people think this, that we have an idea of how they're feeling and how to respond to them. Oh, he doesn't like that. Oh, no, that's uncomfortable for him. Now, I think that is manufactured a lot, and that is often very much an ego kind of related response to a relationship with an animal. But I do think, and I do get to talk to autistic people all the time, there is some more truth in that. That's my feeling, but I recognise how grandiose that sounds.
Don't know.
But there seems to be a different level of attunement, and I think I read and talk to people about this all the time, about an attunement to animals, particularly that autistic people have that's different.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's grandiose, because I think that if we pay attention and observe and attune, then we can advocate in just the same as we can for children or just someone that we know very, very, very well. And that's not us being grandiose, that's just us observing them and responding to what they make clear.
Yes, and that clarifies that a little bit for me, because we talk a lot, don't we, about kind of the dialed down ego part of being autistic and how
yes, you do.
Interact.
That's one of your things, although you haven't said it for a while.
Oh, okay. It's coming back now. So,
yeah.
What a treat for you.
And the listeners. They did used to hear about that quite a lot.
I know. Because it is what I notice, that the motivations for things are generally not about making us feel better than, it's it's the competitive thing, I think, that's dialed down. Maybe ego might be the wrong word, although I think they're very similar. The competitive nature of interactions is dialed right down, and animals don't have that. They just don't have that. Their communication, such as it is, whatever kind of animal it is just direct, literal, needs-based, and that need might be affection and relationship as well. And that's what we do. It doesn't take any adjustment. It doesn't take any masking. It's quite pure in that way. Mm-hmm. So being with an autistic person is, in some of those very basic communicative ways, like being with an animal. And that you can communicate. I mean, obviously the levels of sophistication are very, very different. But the attunement feels, at least to me, I can only speak for me, feels very, very similar. You don't have to interpret. There's no expectations and you don't have to interpret.
But why did you say that it was grandiose?
Because then it sounds like I'm saying, oh, listen to me, I'm Dr. Dolittle, I can talk to the animals. I'm more sensitive than you. I don't like that.
I don't think it sounds like that at all. It just means that this other being, just like you could speak for another person that you know and that you need to advocate for.
Yes.
If they
and we do that a lot, don't we?
I thought that's what you meant. My cats are competitive.
Yes.
They totally are. And they are ego-driven.
We will clearly get in, and I thought this was coming at some point, and I would have brought it round, the dog versus cat thing. There are differences, but I would still argue that your connection with your cats is different to a neurotypical person's connection with their cats.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't know if I can evidence it. What do you... Yeah.
I don't know. I've never thought, because I think that there obviously are non-autistic people who are very attuned to animals. They are animal people, and maybe a whole range of animals, maybe not just their own, but maybe also their own. Yeah. I think I'm only like this with my own. I'm not sure. I'm not really attuned to animals in general, I don't think. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's just never been seen. Mm. But I'm not sure. But how would I know? Because that's like saying as well, to certain people, or the quality of certain relationships is, I can't say more than, less than. It just is. It's not hard for me to, like when I said to you when this happened, well, you've probably never loved anybody the way that you love Woody. So of course that's why it's affecting you this way. And for me that just is. It's not like whether, this is an animal, this is a human. It makes perfect sense to me that someone, you or anyone else, would have their biggest loss would be felt with a non-human, for example. Like that doesn't seem in any way off-kilter or unusual or not to be expected or anything like that. And I know how much you love Woody, and I've known that for as long as I have known you. So that just makes sense. And I said, I was talking to Lana about it, and I said, I really don't know what I'm going to do when the cats go. Like, we're going to have to go through that, because one presumably will go before the other, and obviously they're close in age. So, it could be quite quick or whatever between the two of them. But there's going to be something similar, and I don't know what that's going to be like. By that stage, Lana will be away, unless there's some tragedy that happens, because they're still young. So they're going to be with me. But yeah, it made me think about, I just won't cope. I don't know how I'll cope.
Well, you may be surprised because of circumstances. It was unimaginable to me until 48 hours ago,
And you're very sad today.
Today, particularly, yes, it has hit me today. I suppose this is the other thing about. I know lots about bereavement because I'm a therapist for a start, so with that hat on, I kind of know lots and had lots of experiences of other people's. And I've been, I've lost all my grandparents and a number of close, aunts and uncles and friends, and, to all kind of people who have died young. There's been plenty of that in my 58 years so far. And I am struck, and it does, this is one of the bits of autistic reframing post-diagnosis, is how I've responded in those situations, which is great sadness and great loss, but lots of acceptance quite quickly. That's what I've always noticed. And again, this is something, I hear from lots of autistic people as well. And it's different with animals. And I remember the first death I was close to, which was my maternal grandfather. And he was in hospital. We knew he was dying and he had Alzheimer's, etc. So there'd been a deterioration. It wasn't unexpected or anything. And he died, and I had visited him with him that morning. And I got home first. I was living in a family home then, and I got home first, and that was when we had our first dog, Luna. And I was very sad, and I went into the living room and I sat cross-legged on the floor and was just sad. And she came up to me and sensed it, because dogs do. And she just, rather than get really excited because I'd just come home, she just sat on the floor next to me and rested her head on my lap, rested her chin on my lap. And at that moment, I recall it so clearly, I had this little narrative in my head. My grandfather's just died. I've never lost somebody that close before. And I'm very, very sad, but I'm kind of okay. But if Luna died right now, I'd be beside myself. It would devastate me, and that felt wrong. That felt disproportionate and wrong. But I think I see that now as a very autistic contrast of responses. I don't understand it entirely, but I think it does go back to that very direct, straightforward relationship and communication with animals.
But it just feels understandable to me, in the sense that Luna was in your life every single day. You had an ongoing relationship, so therefore an ongoing minute-to-minute loss, the same as Woody, hour on hour on hour on hour. If it's a grandfather, you have lots of memories, but actually he wasn't living with you. He wasn't, that's right. Involved in your day-to-day life. So it doesn't make sense that would affect one as much as somebody that you're with all the time.
Yeah. I suppose I notice, this is all just about my experience, of course, I'm not projecting onto anyone else, but I do notice that with others, humans and non-humans dying, I seem to be able to find acceptance more quickly than I would have imagined, somehow. And very akin to what you said. So in the last couple of hours, I finally put a Facebook post up to let people that I know that Woody's died. And very, very quickly, obviously lots of very lovely responses from people I know. But somebody, well, I don't say somebody, I'll say my friend Janine said a very lovely thing, which was very true. Remember, he was part of your lives, but you were all of his. I thought that was just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Janine is a Facebook friend who I've only actually met, I think, twice or 2 or 3 times ever. And it so happens that she lives in Cambridgeshire, very close to where the Wood Green Animal Shelter, where we got Woody from in the first place, and why it's called Woody. And she met me there on the morning that we went to pick up Woody, just to say hi, because she was only round the corner.
Yeah.
And I took a photo of her that day, and I was able to respond to that lovely post and say, yes, you were there on day one. And
wow, did she know that? She knew that was that.
She only just
this
this very second responded to that. Oh my goodness, I was indeed a very special day for Woody. Yes.
Yeah, whenever these kind of conversations happen, and I realise how straightforward my thinking is about it, one part of me goes, you just haven't really lived, Shauna. You just haven't experienced certain things. But then I think, well, you know, of course I have. Of course I've lost people, the same as you have. And I do fit the very stereotype, typical autistic, doesn't really seem to take it the same way as everybody else.
Yes.
Well, but actually doesn't. Like, I just have not gone through severe grief reactions to anyone. And that then, you know, makes me go, well, you know, is there coldness there, or just a stark acceptance? It is as it is, as it is.
Absolutely convinced that's what it is.
But also the quality of my relationships with the people that have died has not been particularly close or profound because I didn't have close relationships with my blood relatives. And people that I have had close relationships with have not yet died. You know, now I can feel and be incredibly moved and upset and empathise with the feelings of other people at funerals. And yes, be very, very sad and feel into what that must feel like. But because I didn't live or have that relationship with people, then it's not a personal loss to me.
Yeah.
So because there's so few people at any one time in my life that I might have a significant enough relationship with, that there would be loss personally to me, then it's hard for me to conceive of feeling that way. So even people I've been friends and very, very close and very, very significant relationships with in the past, of course, if they died, I would feel heartbroken on behalf of their families and their current partners and their current children, and the how awful it is that their life has been cut short. I would feel that profoundly. I would hold them in mind. I would think of them, care about the situations, reach out and offer what I could. You know, however, that actual person is not a key part of my life right now. So I wouldn't feel the loss. I would just have the happy memories of the time I spent with them. That's not a grief reaction.
It's not a neurotypical grief reaction. Maybe. All I will say, though, is that has been my experience through my life as well, in exactly the way you describe. And I now don't have difficult feelings about it because I now understand that it's a lovely gift that I can have that kind of acceptance and be realistic. And I do wonder about some other people's reaction and responses. I do sometimes think, is that real? Are you really this devastated? What's that? How come? It's one of those autistic, I don't quite get what's going on here things sometimes. I now realise that.
Yeah. And I can see that, I think I can see the difference, and I share the puzzlement sometimes about what other people are going through. And it could be just that I delineate between what's mine, what's another person's, what's grief. You know, what can I say is grief and what is empathy with another person or something like that. So I can see all of that, and I can see the autistic way of thinking all of this through. And I can also get that due to being autistic, I have not forged strong attachments with people, usually neurotypical people, say in my family, so who have died. And therefore it makes sense that without strong attachments, you therefore will not have strong grief reactions because you don't know what it's like to be that attached to somebody when they die. And maybe that's not that we don't have the capacity to connect, but that by and large we haven't got that many connections, and therefore we will not experience these things. And as we're talking about today, some of us will experience that profoundly with an animal, because the quality of that connection is something that is real.
It's amazing. It's amazing because that can broaden out into so many other experiences. So, my oversimplistic exploration of that has been, well, I'm autistic, and people who aren't autistic are going to respond to emotional things differently to me. But for you to further kind of explain why that might be, that it's not just that an autistic person will have a different display of an emotional response, they'll also have different reasons for not having the same emotional response by not having those connections and relationships in the same way and to the same extent that other people may. So how many of the other things that I'm making sense of as a late diagnosed autistic adult aren't just about the different processes that I have, but also the emotional and the relational and the sociological reasons that being autistic have made me experience life in a way that means I have a different emotional response, not just an autistic display of those emotions. I could tangle myself up.
No, that's right. That's exactly right.
Really,
a different emotional,
huge.
What you just said there, a different emotional experience, which is not just a different emotional response.
Yes.
Okay, so I need to go and get changed and get on the road to go and see the orthodontist, hopefully for the very last time. 2.5 years later, my daughter has straighter teeth. Okay. And that little phase is done.
Well, good luck, Lana, and be careful when you go out. There is a weather warning for your town over the
Carrick, for Belfast.
Carrick. Well, it covers a much wider area, but I always look at the Carrick weather particularly, and you have a weather warning from 2 till 8 of winds of up to 46 miles an hour and heavy rain.
Okay,
so thank you very much.
I will. I shall talk to you soon. Thank you for being with us, lovely listeners.
Yeah.
Catch up with you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at autisticlicense.com or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. We spell license LICENCE. We also have a Facebook community. You can search for Autistic License Shauna and Leo. Shauna spelled SIANA, or you can click on the link in the show notes.